Hey, what's up? So I did this project just for fun and thought it would be kind of cool to share with people. It is obviously a Super Nintendo collaboration with a boombox, and what better way to show it off than talk about how it compares to the awesome and very popular Nintendo Switch, which I do realize is much better. But let's, for fun, look at some factors and see how the boombox compares to the Switch. So looks obviously important, and I think the boombox has this hands down, so we're going to give a point there. Both the Switch and boombox have controllers, yet the Nintendo Switch is the only one that has wireless controllers, so we're going to give it a point there. Now they're both battery powered with rechargeable batteries, so they're each going to get a point there. When it comes to convenience, the Switch fits in your pocket. The boombox does go nicely on your shoulder, but it isn't quite as convenient as the Switch. So we're going to go ahead and give the boombox the 1 point for the handle. Now next up is the video comparison. I did make the Nintendo boombox to have an HDMI port on the back, which is obviously very nice because you can play it on a larger TV than the 3.5-inch screen that is built into the boombox. Now, it is a replacement screen. The old little CRT TV that was in it, I did have to take that out and put a little Raspberry Pi type screen into it. So I guess for our comparison, they both have screens, but the Nintendo Switch is better. They both have HDMI outputs, and the graphics clearly are going to be better on the Nintendo Switch. But here's the category that I love, audio. Now, the boombox has much better sound, much more customization when it comes to the sound. You can tweak the bass, treble. Of course, it's going to have one feature that the Switch doesn't, and that is a FM radio. Now, as we judge the audio category, I have to give every point to the boombox Super Nintendo. The FM radio really sealed the deal. When it comes to games, I think both of these systems have some of the best games that are out there. I love the old Zelda. I love the new Zelda. I love the old Mario. I love the new Mario. I'm just going to say they each get a point because they both have some of the best games ever. That means they're tied. Now, if you're wondering how I did this, I can show you just kind of the steps and what's inside. If you're wondering why I did this, there's really no way I can explain that. But if you're still watching this, you might as well know. So inside the boombox is actually the Nintendo or Super Nintendo Classic Edition, and it is a smaller form factor, and I was actually able to get it even smaller by taking it out of the case. The Nintendo Switch Classic does have a little ribbon cable to another little board that has the power switch and the reset switch on it. I am hard resetting the system with just basically hard resetting the battery, meaning that I'm not even using the power switch on the console itself, which is probably dumb, but it's working. It's not crashing or anything. The reset basically is what takes you back to that home screen and allows you to save your state or pick a different game. That's important, and so I did actually take that button and solder that and wire that up to that momentary switch on top of the boombox so you can physically press it and actually reset the console. And then the last thing coming out of the console is that HDMI output carrying the audio and video signal. From there, I went into a powered splitter so I could basically send one signal to eventually to the little screen that's in the boombox, and then send one signal to the port that's on the back of the boombox so that you can plug in that larger screen TV. Now, in order to actually use the boombox amplifier to play the Super Nintendo sound, I use a device that essentially separates the HDMI video input, outputs that, and outputs a separate analog audio signal. So it separates that incoming HDMI audio and video signal into a HDMI video output and a analog audio output. So the analog audio output gets wired into the auxiliary input on the boombox amplifier. I just splice it internally so it's easier, but basically that means that when you change the boombox input setting to auxiliary, it plays the Super Nintendo source. The HDMI video gets outputted to the LCD display, pretty clear cut. Lastly, to power it all, I use a rechargeable lithium-ion battery pack. So far, so good. It will run it for hours and hours. It has a 12-volt output, and that is actually going straight into the 12-volt input on the boombox component. So it powers everything that was originally with the boombox. Now, the battery pack I'm using actually has a 5-volt USB output, and I am probably pushing the limits on it, but I am powering the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, I am powering the HDMI splitter, the audio extractor, and the LCD display, all with that output. Now the splitter and extractor don't probably use very much power, but so far so good. It's actually able to keep up and power everything without any issues. So anyway, just one final look at the Boombox Super Nintendo. Feel free to comment or let me know if you have any questions. It was just a fun project. I figured why not make it. Like a lot of people, I always find myself building something. I think I'm going to try and do some other videos and show some of the current projects I'm working on. Feel free to subscribe if you want to stay in touch.